So as before, if you've got the bandwidth, I encourage you share video. Let's try to make this an in-person, as close to in-person as possible meeting. I would like the general vibe to be that we're sitting around a table talking with each other, not that we're passively listening on a phone call. If you've not used Metaco at an interim recently, there are a couple of features that have been added that I want to point out. Since we've got a small group here, I think we can go ahead and beat up on their server and have everybody connected to the server that's doing primary mixing. If you start sending audio using the microphone button that's above the number of participants tab in the left column, and just leave that open, you can then locally mute with a second mute button that's down in your very lower right hand corner. If you do that, you will remain connected to the primary mixer at all times, and you can unmute and mute locally quickly without having to wait for Metaco to switch your media sessions on the back end.
Sorry, can you say that again? I missed the beginning of it. What do I press?
Okay, so there are two mute buttons on your screen right now from Metaco. The one that's in the column on the left under your name where they got the 5 icons, leave that one open.
Okay.
Now when you want to mute, look down in the lower right corner of the Metaco window.
Got it. And there's local.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. The UI is slightly interesting, but
yeah, I'm not involved in the day-to-day discussions on the evolution of this, but this is what we've got at the moment.
I like the slightly different microphone icons. That really drives home the point that you're doing something different.
Yep. Okay, so some people are reporting that they're having to do reloads to get their media to work. We'll wait just a moment more till we have more people online and online stably. I will plan to start at 5 after. If you've not already done so, please skim through the notes page for the meeting. I'm assuming everybody has that at hand. Hey Liz, Cabo is Carson Borman. And again, if possible, I see we seem to be bound at 9. Maybe we are still bound with the number of people it can show on the screen. I'd like to see if we can have more people join the video. If it won't let you and we're still bound at 9, then good, we're not. That's awesome. All right, let's go ahead and get started. As you note, the notes page is quite long. I'm planning to treat most of the sections as take them as read, unless somebody brings up questions. I'll mention them when I'm about to skip over them. If you've got something in them that I'm planning to skip that you want to talk about, just interrupt me, please. So I'm planning to skip over the first two items and start with the item on the IETF refresh, unless there are questions. On the IETF refresh, Glenn is currently planning to build a new version of IETF on a different piece of hardware with a different version of Xen. And Glenn, you can correct me if I get any of my nouns wrong. That would, and move everything that's installed over into that system, have the development team verify that everything's working, and then schedule a cutover. There is an alternate approach that we could have taken, but we're not currently planning to, which would involve an in-place upgrade of the OS that's currently on IETF running on the older hypervisor and the older hardware. The trade-off here is having an ability to check that the moved systems are functional before we have the cutover, instead of repairing any damage that might happen from an in-place upgrade, versus continuing to run for a few more weeks on an OS that is past its point of getting security updates, basically. So our current plan is that Glenn will be working on this new install for the rest of this month, with an expectation that we would start development testing on it at the first part of March. I don't know that we want to have as big of a disruption as a move to a new machine before IETF 113, so if we continue down this path, I suspect we would do the cutover just after 113. Does anybody have any issues with that? You know, fully understanding that we've got the risk of running on this older OS for another 6 weeks or better. Glenn, did you have anything to correct in what I said? Yeah, you're muted.
I think it's a good characterization. I think that going the build the new server route gives us more flexibility, more safety. It takes a little bit longer, but I don't think it will take significantly longer, and I think it would be fine. I mean, I'll provide either solution that the IETF wants. The only reason that I even suggested doing the new server route was because of our experience with the last in-place upgrade, which was not good. So I like to be safe. I like to make sure the IETF is up. So I prefer the slow, sure course. But happy to do whatever.
Okay. So our plan, unless I hear otherwise, is that we're going to continue down this building the new server. I'd like to track it kind of closely, Glenn, if something comes up that's going to delay getting to the point where the dev team can test at the time frame that we've been talking on, please let me know. I think he said okay. It didn't quite come through. It's all right.
All right. Delayed. Yes, that is okay, and I will keep you posted.
I'm going to take moving the RFC editor lists over to IETF as read. On the Svn Track Conversion, you can read about the small repositories that we have moved already. We moved the XML to RFC repository earlier today and split out several of the repositories that were embedded inside of it into their own repositories. XML to RFC is now on GitHub. It is going to get there are going to be some major changes in what's in main before we really start developing against it. We'll be beating on it today and tomorrow. Basically, CLI will become the main branch and the others will become archived. I believe that we're at the point now where any future XML to RFC tickets should be entered as issues in GitHub. And later today, I'll be working on closing the track instance to new changes and trying to find a way to put a banner there to let people know if they've got older links to that to move to the newer location. So we've been doing a lot since the last meeting on moving to where we're doing our primary development on GitHub. Nick in particular has built a lot of tools for us. One that's very nice based on a conversation we had with DKG that lets us continue to keep very close control of our private signing keys for signing packages at PyPy. That will let us mechanically do our pushes, sign pushes of new releases into PyPy without, with a very low probability of developer and operator error in the process of making those pushes. This is a really nice piece of work by Nick. We've also built out a lot of CI/CD on these repositories, using the RFC to HTML repository, which is the thing that makes the HTMLized documents, as a testing ground so that commits to the main branch are automatically tested, pushes are automatically tested, and the right thing, a lot of automatic things happen when we cut releases. All right, any questions on that before I move along?
Quick question, when do you think we're done with the other repositories? Before Vienna or after?
Before. I mean, the other repositories, all that's left that is in this particular project is the data tracker.
Right. The reason I'm asking is I'm wondering, because this will sort of really enable the community to participate better than they have in the past, at least sort of the non-core people that are on this call. I wonder if we want to talk about this at the plenary for 5 minutes and basically say, hey, you can now go to GitHub and fix stuff directly that annoys you.
Yeah, if it's not, unless we discover trouble before then, yes, please do so.
Okay, so that would mean you probably, I don't know what the time zones are going to be for you, but if you make me a slide, I can talk to it, or somebody, Eric might be there.
I'll be at plenary,
okay,
whatever time it is.
All right, so let's plan for that, and we'll set aside some time there. Cool.
Sure. All right, pools.ietf.org. We're in truly the very last stretch. The long pole is bibxml, which I'll talk about separately. Kassar is doing a set of final things to get the author tools into what we would consider a production mode instead of a development mode. That should happen very, very soon. A couple of things. Okay, the author site is essentially ready for being made live. I mean, Jay, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about with people here to make that happen quicker?
No, I don't think so. I think we may have an error in the template to do with the word joiner discussion that's taking place. We have a number of suggestions from Bob Briscoe that need to be incorporated into it, but those are all just maintenance stuff that can just continue once it's live. So no, I mean, I don't see anything. I'm really looking for external feedback that says whether anybody thinks any showstoppers here at all, or whether people are comfortable that we should just go ahead with it now.
So unless somebody brings up discomfort, I think that we'll plan to make that the place that we really point people for help over the next couple of weeks. All right. I've made some progress with figuring out how to provide daily dose on an ongoing basis, but I'm not planning to necessarily have that ready before we get to the cutover point. So if that bothers anybody, let me know. I think offline, I don't know that we need to burn time on the call here other than just making sure everybody sees that that one is going to lag. Similarly, Kasara is working on a replacement for BAP. We have it out there. If we need it, we can just stand up the really simple web service that's built into Bill Finner's repository that Bill and Paul Kizavat worked on. But Kasara is working on something better. We'll see if it's ready before we are ready to cut over. I've been working with Henrik. I've got the final set of redirects located. I will reformat them and send them to Glenn. We'll be ready to go once we are happy with what's happening with the BibXML service. Now, that service, that project has a lot of hot and heavy activity going on at the moment. We're now pushing edge cases around. Ribose is finding some points of discomfort with their use of Relaton. It has some expected semantics to the names in the Relaton format that they're using internally that don't mesh well with the semantics of names of things that we have in the IETF. You can follow some of the tickets that I've linked in the thing to see that conversation and just watch the primary repository, which that figuring out at edge case links points into to see what the other the tenor of the other tickets look like. I do think we're pretty close. I think that we'll have we'll be working on deploying it on our own devices over the next couple of weeks, and I am hoping that in the span of 3 weeks or so from now, we can really cut over to it and start the tools.ietf.org, final parts of the tools.ietf.org transition. So I will time that to happen after whatever the draft cutoff is. I don't remember what that is on the top of my head, but we won't move the rug out from everybody during the hard draft submission press. Any questions on the BibXML service? Just as an aside to let people know, Ronald C., the lead at Ribose, also has leadership roles at organizations like ISO and has raised the question about how ISO should format their references into IETF documents. We as a consequence of some of the conflicts in semantics and terminology that we were talking about, he's now in a email thread with the IETF leadership to get a better polish on what that is, and I suspect that's likely going to spill out onto other SDOs. All right, let's quickly talk about Zulip.
That sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, probably. No progress was made on Zulip in the last month. We seem to have deadlocked on who should have the token to make this thing go forward. I believe my understanding of where we are right now is that we need to figure out if and how we are going to cause new rooms in Zulip to have the note well, what that note well is going to contain and when it's going to be present. I think Glenn was looking to Jay for direction on configuration of that.
Yes, I think that was me. Sorry, Robert.
Okay.
I think that was me actually. I have an unanswered email about some stuff now I need to go back to, so I'll have a look at that today. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to reconfirm that we're on the right target with Zulip. I am planning on starting to work with Metaco between 113 and 114 on changing the back end for Metaco to Zulip instead of Jabber. If that makes anybody uncomfortable, let me know. At the last meeting, I suggested that the IAB and ISG consider Zulip. The end result in the meeting was a very tentative, well, we need to play with it first. I think I've been hearing some evidence of, no, we really don't want to do this from those bodies since then, and that they want to stay with Slack. Am I correct? So I then ask, for future working groups, is having Zulip be the place that we plan to have them do work still the right thing if the leadership doesn't want to go there? Yeah, it's not working, Lars.
How's now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, then I was unmuted the whole time. The reason leadership isn't doing it is because, as far as I understand, there's no way to not have it be archived. And that was a concern, because we actually have Slack channels there that are mirroring the ISG only, IAB only sort of lists that we have that are also archived.
So private channels. So we should look to see if there is a way in the future to have private channels, and that might change the opinion.
That might change the opinion, and the other thing is that nobody wants to use two tools, right? Because that would suck. So
yeah, but if we're going to have working groups really working there, then the ISG at least is going to need to be watching what the working groups do there.
sure, but that's for each individual ID to figure out, right, how they want to do that. But the ISG overall, I think the overriding thing was that it's not possible to have non-archived conversations, either in a or one-on-one, which was possible with Metaco, with Jabber.
Plus the fact
All right.
that in those COVID time where everything is remote, we are, as I said last time, we are really used and we get the community feeling over Slack, and it's very precious to keep until we go back in person meetings, which is touching wood right soon.
Yeah, and there's a question whether or not you can get that level of camaraderie with.
Yeah,
with
we're also using a bunch of Slack bots to basically help the mic queue. We have an app for that in Slack, and I don't know if Zulip has any kind of the same app ecosystem that Slack has.
All right. Unless somebody has any other questions on Zulip, I'll move forward. I didn't mention at the front of the call, I'll take the moment now to remind people that this is being recorded and will land on YouTube. So keep that in mind as you comment. Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, sorry, I just did a quick search. Zulip, I don't understand this thing about archiving with Zulip. Zulip has organizational-wide message retention policies that are then overridden by stream-specific message retention policies. It doesn't tell me in the documentation how long that message retention minimum is, but I'd be surprised if it's much more than a day or something. So it looks as though we can do, stream-specific, messages disappearing after a period of time. So I'll investigate that a bit further.
Okay. I plan to skip over FTP and web analytics unless somebody has questions on either of those. Please follow the link that I have at that first sentence on tools workshops. There's a GitHub repository that is currently in my area. I'll move it to IETF Tools after the call. There are a series of workshops that we've talked about before. We're going to put together a call sometime in the next very small number of weeks. General tools call, but anyone in the community will be welcome to join to prioritize and start scheduling which of these workshops will execute on. If you've got ideas for new workshops, please contribute. I'm going to move past track wiki migration to wiki.js, the crowdsourcing of moving things. Kasara, do you want to hit high points on author tools and the website?
On author tools, the high points are now we can have
You're,
shareable
you're coming
URLs.
through, but you're very, very quiet.
How about now? Can you hear me properly?
You're still pretty quiet, but it was better.
So on author tools, now we can have shareable URLs for draft or RFC comparisons. That's the high point on author tools. On Wagtail website, the high point would be the update of 2 new Wagtail version.
Anyone have questions, comments on what's happening with either of those author tools of the Wagtail website? I'm going to take the common bootstrap theme work as read. Please follow the link if you want to know more about it. For the data tracker, the high point I want to talk about, you can read through all of what's here, is we are running behind Cloudflare. That's successful. Over the next few days, we're going to try to move off of Apache and ModWhiskey into Nginx and GUnicorn. You can read about some of the major development pieces of work that we need to do. We did make a change in direction recently on when we were going to pull in the Bootstrap 5 branch. We're going to bring that in first and start the time zone aware branch work over. After discussing with Nick and Kasara and Jennifer, we think we want to re-implement the code that's doing that migrations anyhow, so that we all are very familiar with it, instead of discovering the work that Henrik had rediscovering the work that Henrik had previously done.
Hey, Robert,
Yeah.
with Bootstrap, aren't we going to see quite a difference in look and feel?
It will be massively different.
That was the impression I got from what Lars said, I don't know, a month or two ago. So it seems to me we need to tell the community before we release that one.
Yeah, planning to run it parallel to the sandbox for a while and ask for community feedback, get people to exercise it. And we certainly would not bring it into production until after the meeting.
And to come back, Robert, on the Cloudflare part, have we already seen a performance improvement or less load on our servers?
Yeah,
I understand it's only for non-authenticated people, right?
There are links off to a couple of notes pages that I've created that show the kind of improvements that we've seen. They
Okay,
are
that's nice.
significant. They are not massive. There are things that we can do to move them closer to massive, but it has been quite a bit of help already.
Thank you.
So yeah, I do encourage people to follow the links that say at running behind Cloudflare and smoother overall performance, and browse those, send me questions. All right, Kasara, highlights on XML to RSC.
The highlight on XML to RFC is now by default any local reference for a file in source directory or the templates directory are allowed. So people wouldn't get the errors that they got if there's a file, ENT file in the local source directory.
So we are looking at restricting the set of domains that by default XML to RSC will fetch X includes from. Kasar and I have been working out a set of domains, and we think that we'll implement this in the next, in the next release. So that will be domains like the XML to RSC.IETF.org or its replacement, the RFCeditor.org, other SDOs that are providing libxml like xmpp.org, and a few wildcarded sites that would let people pull things from their GitHub repositories. Might not put that one into XML RFC. We're doing a similar thing with Author Tools with diff for where people can pull things by URL for arbitrary diffing. So we'll definitely be looking at the locations in GitHub for diff. This all comes into, do we really want people to be able to cause the data tracker to pull pages from arbitrary sites? We might run into problems in the long run with both the content and just the act of doing a get on a particular domain. We may move further later. We'll have some conversations about submit the submit tool, but I don't think we're ready to launch into those on this call. I expect before we get to the next tools call, we're going to be talking about what we would accept into, what kind of includes we would accept into the repository, a little bit different than what we currently do now.
So I saw that actually just a couple minutes ago that the pull was restricted on what URLs it would fetch. And I certainly am one who does do that, particularly to deal with, replies to incremental replies to, particularly to discusses to show, this is what I did and here's the 2 text files that I stuck on. Yeah, often it was GitHub, and so that should work fine. So I guess the 2 questions are: what's the process for getting new URLs, new prefixes added to that list? How far? Where does it have to go if we do that? And the other part of my question is: has this really been a problem up to now with the RFC diff? Have we really gotten abuse complaints or something like that from this?
So this is all rooted in things that we learned from the security review of the data tracker that found issues in XML to RFC as the data tracker was using it. And the constraints that we're setting up are basically built around that. I can't point to massive abuse of URLs at arbitrary domains, but it is very easy for me to construct abuses that would take that service into very bad places.
And about Git,
Michael, you
about
started to
GitHub,
talk,
right?
but you weren't connected yet.
Eric.
Now
Michael, go
now
on.
you're
I
in.
don't want to overstep you.
So I agree with you that the potential there for doing something is a problem, and as we improve the performance of the diff tool, actually we will be improving the ability to attack. Right, the more capacity we have for doing diffs, particularly if we start doing some kind of cloud bursting, the day before the ID cutoff day, or something like that, to have extra capacity. Well, that's also adding capacity to attack. So I guess I'm quite okay with the fact that we're going to put that limit in. I think that my original part of the question is how and who would we get things added to that list, and where is that? What is that process? Just a secretariat request? Is it going to have to go to the ISG? Is there what is it? Anyone any thoughts to what that process is going to be?
I think that is really going to be an operational decision. So I think it would be me, and I would certainly coordinate closely with the leadership on what else we would point to. For getting requests in, mail to the secretariat or PRs against the relevant piece in the code would be the right way to ask.
So it's a list in the code.
I'm kind of, yeah, this list will be in the code.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I'm just curious. I could send you an email saying, please add my domain, and then we're done, right? That's kind of, I'm happy to have it feed on me, but I think that's the point here. Yeah.
yeah, maybe. My initial instinct was that we would use basically the same metric for what we point to now as sort of what we use for what we'll make references to inside RFCs. So we'd be pointing to stable places and SDOs and things where we have, admin that we trust, and individuals, places like your domain. We can talk about, adding those, but there's, rot that can come in and bite us later. So I think, yeah, you're right. We should continue to have a conversation about this, and the tools discuss list is probably the right place to do that.
Yeah. And my only comment was that GitHub, we should not trust it, right? Because anybody can put any content there.
Well, the nice thing about GitHub is that you can't, while you might be able to put content there, you can't really control how that content gets served. And one of the attacks that would be easy to mount right now would be you provide a URL that has a slow ORS on the other end. So okay. Anything else?
A machine that basically returns 1 byte per hour but doesn't close the connection.
Yep. Just 1 byte often enough. We've got timeouts in place, but you can find them. So. Anything else on that topic before we move along? I'm going to take mail archive, the registration system as read. You will note some notes in the data tracker section on interaction with the registration system. Eric, would you like to talk about Yang catalog?
Yeah, and I mean, we work with what I call the proponents, so the founder of the Yang catalog, the Benoit Clays, the Joe Clark, and a few others, to make a list of about 10. That's the list which is there. And basically, I am feeding from the top priority to Pantheon, the contractor, by opening issues and checking what is done. So it's slowly working through the list. One big chunk is about the SID, the Schema Id. That's how we can compress long Schema Id from Yang into something much smaller, by an integer basically. And this is kind of interesting because this document has been approved by the ISG, if not mistaken, but now we discover, how we can do it, and we discover problems. We are killing 2 birds in 1 stone, let's say, on this. So fixing the draft itself and trying to get the right technical analysis and logical analysis on this, on how we can proceed. So Karsten, I think you are in the call, so you may want to say a few words because you are involved in this. I read Cabo. I was assuming it was Carsten as usual, but maybe not. Anyway.
I think it is, but I don't know that his audio is working. All right, any questions about Yang catalog? Please follow the pointers there. There's also a project in the Yang catalog organization itself that's useful to follow for seeing what's happening, where the focus is on day-to-day Yang catalog development. Michael, you started to ask something?
Is the issue of SID numbers clearly in your scope? There were some questions that did come from, I think, you, Eric, and Benoit last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure that everyone's clued into the challenge or the whatever.
Yeah,
requirement.
and sorry, Michael, I should have thought about you as well, not only Carsten there. You are part in the discussion. I think we will need to get either in the coming days a discussion with all the components, specifically for the SID, you, Carsten, and everyone that wants it, and the people from the Yang catalog, and try to get things, because working on the Google Doc, I mean, it's not efficient, right, basically. So we need to get a talk on this.
Okay.
I will try to find it. Okay. Action item for me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, unless somebody has something else, we can move on to the data tracker security review, which I realized I hadn't typed in things. I started to, I'll finish it later. The dev team is completing the last actions we needed to work on to remediate the issues that the security report pointed out. We got all of the major ones before the last call. There are some minor ones that we'll be working with fixing over the next couple of weeks. We'll then prepare a document that goes along with their final report. The report, as presented from them, still has a lot of sections that say that the issues are unaddressed. Rather than have them go back and change the report to say the issues are addressed, I'm planning on just putting a companion document along with it when we publish it that notes how we addressed the ones that the reports say weren't addressed yet. So we do plan to go to publish the final report with all of the dark secrets that it had down inside of it. They are no longer relevant, but it was entertaining what they were able to extract.
Robert, can I just,
Yes.
I mean, just want to double check nobody has any objection to us doing this. I mean, I think it's entirely aligned with the principle of transparency that we have. And I think this is the normal way that a good, company would do this, or a good organization would do this. But I want to, make sure that we're all along with that. +1 from Rich, I can see in the chat. Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it's a little hard to answer that without having seen the report, so I saw a little bit of hesitancy on some people's eyes. We can certainly circulate the report among the team before publishing it on the website. So,
Would anybody like us to do that before we publish?
or do you think we should just move straight to publish?
Yeah, I don't.
Any reactions at all? I'm hearing that we just move straight to publish and that people here are not uncomfortable. All right. We're working on the statement of work for the next security review, which would be an IETF-A wide review. I'm going to be in touch with Jay over the next day or so to hopefully finalize that and start getting on to ZX's schedule for that review. And everything else, I think we can take as read. Does anybody have something else they would like to bring up for this call? So there was a lot. Go ahead, Jay.
No, I was going to say, if nobody does, I'd like to just finish off by going back to the workshops briefly.
Sure.
So the LRC budget has been published again, and again we're making a significant investment in tools. You know, there's a strong feeling on the LRC board that there is a significant amount of technical debt that needs to be repaid. We have Nick and Kasara on board now, so we have significant amount of development capabilities and things. And so these workshops, I think, are going to be very important for us to plan the work ahead. And we have clearly two sides to that. One is to tidy up and clean up stuff that exists. But I don't think that's going to be the majority of the work. I think we're going to be able to relatively soon switch to a more forward-looking approach where we're able to do some really interesting new things. And so I think it's going to be important for us to talk about the right sorts of things and have that kind of engagement around that. So I just wanted to highlight that these workshops, I think, are going to be important for shaping the future of stuff. So, I mean, just to give you an example, the type of things that some people have spoken about in the past are us having, say, something like a plugin to VS Code that brings, pulls in all of the stuff you need to create an ID with. Those type of things are now possible for us to do. I'm not saying that's the right one, but we need to start having those conversations about those things. So if you could look at the workshops bit, add in any sort of thoughts or ideas of the directions that you think we should be discussing, please do that. Robert and I have done what we can, but I think at times, we're quite operational, and if others have got sort of broader ideas, that would be useful.
I have a question about the call. This was quite long. Did the take as read approach work? Do we want to start having this call more frequently, or do you think that calls at the current cadence with this level of content in them is the right level?
It works for me. I mean, the one minor change I might make is you might try the equivalent of a consent agenda. Mark stuff as I'm not going to talk about this unless somebody flags it. So you can just skip over the. You can completely skip the stuff you want to skip.
Good suggestion indeed.
As long as the notes go out ahead of time, like they did this time, it's fine.
Yeah. All right, we'll stick with the monthly cadence. Unless somebody has something else, I think we're done. I thank everybody for their time. And, thank you for being so patient and supportive as we're doing these big technology disruptions. The move of the data tracker behind Cloudflare and the move of the source into GitHub is definitely big things for us. So so far it's going smoothly. So
Yeah, it's a big change in operation, in design, and in features. So congratulations.
Thanks for all you do, Robert.
and we'll see you all online.
I have one quick question. Is there a code sprint plan for Vienna?
Yep, Saturday before, hybrid.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye then.
Bye-bye.